They told him to hand over his money, but 10 seconds later, they were the ones on the ground. There are moments in life when you just want to stay invisible. For Jalen Brooks, this was one of them. It was a Wednesday morning, sming, sky still gray with leftover rain from the night before. The kind of morning where people don't make much eye contact, and nobody says more than they need to. Jalen stepped off the yellow school bus in front of Dayton Central High in Dayton, Ohio, clutching his backpack strap a little tighter than usual. He didn't want attention, didn't want trouble, just wanted to get through the rest of junior year and maybe, just maybe, graduate in peace. But from the moment he walked through those double doors, he could already feel the difference. The school was bigger than the one back in Gary, Indiana. Louder, too. The hallways were filled with clusters of kids that moved like tight-knit packs, laughing, talking, bumping shoulders, barely noticing him. But some did. They noticed his skin, his accent, the way he didn't try to dress like anybody else. Just simple jeans, a plain hoodie, and sneakers that had seen a few too many winners. He kept his head down and walked toward the main office to pick up his schedule. A woman behind the desk handed him a printed sheet with a practiced smile. "Welcome to Dayton Central, Jalen. If you get lost, just ask one of the student aides. You'll be fine," she said. He nodded, thanked her, and slipped back into the hallway. First period, American history. He found the room, slid into a seat in the back, and stared out the window. A few heads turned. One kid, a pale, stocky guy with a messy buzz cut, leaned toward the guy next to him and whispered something while nodding in Jalen's direction. Then both of them laughed. Jalen pretended not to hear. By lunch, he had already picked up a rhythm. Move fast, speak little, don't look too long at anyone. He sat alone near the far wall in the cafeteria, a peanut butter sandwich from home, resting quietly in front of him. No one sat at his table. He didn't mind. He wasn't there to make friends. Still, he couldn't help but feel the stares, especially from Cody Renshaw, the same buzz-cut kid from history class. Cody was one of those kids who never wore a jacket no matter how cold it was outside. He had that kind of restless energy, like he was always looking for something to poke, push, or laugh at. Next to him sat Brent and TJ, two seniors who followed Cody around like backup singers. Brent was tall and wiry, always cracking his knuckles. TJ was broader, quiet, but mean-looking, like a pit bull that hadn't been fed in a while. They weren't subtle. They kept glancing over at Jalen, smirking. TJ elbowed Cody, who just grinned and mouthed something across the lunchroom. Jalen didn't respond. He just took a bite of his sandwich and kept his eyes on the wall behind them. After lunch, he had PE coach Daniels split them into groups for some half-hearted basketball scrimmages. Jalen kept to himself on the court, passed the ball, didn't take any shots. On the sideline, Cody walked by and accidentally bumped him with his shoulder hard enough to knock him a step sideways. "Watch it, Bruce Lee," Cody said with a sneer. Jalen paused, looked at him, then turned back to the court. Without saying a word, he didn't flinch, didn't react. He just breathed. But Cody's eyes narrowed a little, like he wasn't used to people not reacting, and that's what caught his interest. By Friday, Jalen already had a reputation, even if it wasn't one he built himself. He was the quiet black kid from out of town who thinks he's too cool to talk to anybody. At least that's how Cody told it. And in a school like Dayton Central, where small talk traveled faster than the intercom, that kind of label stuck quick. In second period algebra, Cody sat diagonally behind Jalen and made little comments under his breath. "Bet he can't even do fractions. Think he's better than us or something? Probably on scholarship or food stamps or both." Jalen heard it all, every word, but he didn't turn around. Not once. Coach Daniels had taught him years ago during training. Silence makes weak men nervous. Discipline makes them confused, but silence doesn't always protect you. After school that day, as students funneled out toward the buses, Jalen's phone buzzed. It was a message from his grandpa. "Everything okay today? Need me to pick you up?" He smiled for a second. Grandpa always checked in, always on time, always steady. Jalen texted back, "I'm good. Just taking the bus today." He hit send, looked up, and locked eyes with Cody from across the parking lot. It wasn't a long look, but it was enough. The next week, things got bolder. Cody started flicking folded-up paper balls at Jalen during history. Brent tripped him by accident during gym. TJ followed him into the locker room one day and knocked over his backpack, sending books sliding across the floor. Jalen picked up every single thing, without saying a word, but he took mental notes, every name, every action, every test. The truth was, Jalen had seen worse. Back in Gary, his old school was rough. Not just the kind of rough where people talk loud and walk hard, but the kind where fights broke out over sneakers and teachers gave you that not again look before breaking them up. But even in chaos, he stayed out of trouble because his grandfather, Leon Brooks, retired Marine, Vietnam vet, and a man with a gaze sharp enough to cut through concrete, had raised him with a rule. You don't ever start fights, but if one starts with you, you finish it quick and clean. Jalen had spent 9 years training in Shotoon karate under the local sensei. He'd taken hits, learned breath control, learned how to stop a grown man with one well-placed strike, but still he didn't want that part of him to be seen. Not yet. On Wednesday, things shifted. Cody, Brent, and TJ waited for him outside the locker room after gym class. They weren't smiling this time. Cody stepped forward, arms folded. "So, here's the thing," he said. "You've been walking around here like this is your school, like you own something, but you don't." Brent chimed in. "We take care of people who think they're too good for us." Jalen looked at each of them, calm, focused. "You want something?" he asked. TJ grinned. "Yeah, $20. Consider it a transfer fee." Jalen blinked once, then said flatly, "You don't want to do this." The pause that followed was awkward, like everyone expected a different answer. Cody snorted. "Man, who talks like that?" Jalen stepped aside and walked past them straight out the door. He didn't raise his voice, didn't clench his fists, but in that moment, Cody saw something in his eyes, something cold, still measured. And that's what made him decide to press harder next time. Friday came around fast. It had been 1 week since Jalen warned them. 1 week since Cody decided he didn't like being told what to do by someone who barely spoke a full sentence in public. By lunchtime, the rumor had started making its way around the halls. "They're going to get him after school." Nobody said who started it. Nobody said exactly where, but everyone knew what it meant. By 7th period, even the teachers were picking up on the energy. Students sat restless in their seats, eyes flicked toward the clock every 5 minutes. One girl near the back whispered, "I hope he doesn't show." But he did. Jalen didn't change anything about his routine. He packed his books slowly, zipped up his hoodie, walked toward the exit like it was any other Friday. But when he reached the end of the hallway, he turned right instead of heading for the buses. He already knew. They were waiting behind the old gym, the one they barely used anymore, with the cracked concrete steps and broken vending machine that buzzed like a dying fly. It was quiet over there, no staff, no cameras. He found them standing in a triangle. Cody, arms crossed, bouncing slightly on his heels. Brent leaning against the wall, twirling a lanyard around his finger. TJ standing dead still, watching every move. Jalen stopped about 10 feet away. "You really want to do this?" he asked. Cody laughed. "Man, I've been waiting to do this." "What, you think you're a ninja or something?" Jalen took a step closer. "I'm not here to fight," he said, "but I'm not giving you anything." Brent chewed. "Cold. You got a smart mouth for somebody outnumbered." Jalen glanced around. No one's ever outnumbered when the other side's this stupid. That hit different. Cody's smile dropped. TJ took a step forward, cracking his knuckles. And just like that, it started. Cody threw the first punch. Sloppy, wild, all shoulder, and no technique. Jalen slipped it. Not ducked, slipped. He stepped to the side, caught Cody's wrist mid-swing, and twisted it just enough to throw him off balance. Cody stumbled forward, confused, trying to reset. Brent rushed next. Jalen turned, shifted his weight, and used Brent's momentum against him. One hand on the shoulder, the other sweeping his leg out from under him. Brent hit the ground hard, air knocked out of him. Now it was just TJ. Big, strong, quiet. He didn't hesitate, charged like a bull. Jalen timed it perfectly. A short side-hip, palm strike to the ribs, followed by a quick sweep. TJ hit the ground flat on his back, not knocked out, but winded and stunned. The entire thing took 11 seconds. Jalen stood in the middle of the three of them, calm, breathing steady. No blood, no bruises, just silence. Cody sat up, coughing. What? What the hell was that? He wheezed. Jalen looked down at him. That's what happens when you pick the wrong fight. Then he turned and walked away. No cheering crowd, no slow clap, just the quiet sound of his footsteps fading into the wind. But silence spreads fast when it's earned. By Monday morning, the whole school knew. Not just that there was a fight, but how it happened. How Jalen didn't throw a single unnecessary punch. How he didn't yell, didn't show off, just handled it. Clean, quick, controlled. They even had a nickname for him now, the Calm Storm. Jalen hated it, not because it wasn't accurate, but because it wasn't what he came here for. He didn't want attention, but now he couldn't walk through the halls without hearing whispers. That's him, dude. He folded all three of them. He didn't even break a sweat. Girls stared longer. Guys nodded at him when he passed. A couple freshmen even asked him to teach them how to move like that. But Jalen stayed quiet, kept to his path. The only thing louder than the whispers was the silence from Cody and his crew. They didn't say a word, not to Jalen, not about him, not in class, not at lunch. They moved differently now. Eyes lower, shoulders tighter. TJ had a bruise under his eye. Brent walked with a limp for a day or two. Cody kept fiddling with his wrist like it still hurt. They weren't suspended because no one told a teacher. There were no cameras, and none of them wanted to be the ones to admit what really happened. So the administration didn't intervene. But Mr. Redmond, the vice principal, did call Jalen into his office just to check in. "You doing okay, son?" he asked, fingers laced together, elbows on the desk. "Yes, sir," Jalen said calmly. "We've heard some chatter. You keeping out of trouble?" "Yes, sir." Redmond paused, leaned back. "A lot of kids are scared of fights. They either run or swing wild, but I've been here 14 years and I've never heard students describe one like this. They said you moved like you already knew how it would go." Jalen didn't answer right away. He just looked out the window. "My granddad taught me how to protect myself," he said. "He also taught me to avoid fights whenever I can. I tried." "Redmond." D nodded slowly. "I believe you." He let out a long breath, then stood and walked around the desk. "You're not in trouble, Jalen. Just know some folks in this school aren't used to seeing people like you walk with that kind of calm." Jalen raised an eyebrow. "People like me. You know what I mean," Redmond said, but didn't clarify. Jalen did know. He just didn't give him the satisfaction of agreeing. Later that afternoon, in the locker room after gym, Cody finally spoke. He stood at the end of the row of lockers staring at the floor, voice low. "Why didn't you hurt us worse?" Jalen looked up from tying his shoes. "Because I didn't have to." Cody was quiet a second, then mumbled, "I thought you were soft." Jalen didn't laugh, didn't smirk. "I thought you were smarter," he said, and walked out. And for the first time, Cody didn't have a comeback. By the end of the week, Jalen wasn't just the new kid anymore. He was the one people watched with a different kind of respect. Not fear, but something deeper, a quiet understanding. Even teachers started to notice. Mrs. Lang, his history teacher, called on him more often. Mr. Alvarez, the PE coach, gave him a nod after class one day and said, "Heard you handled yourself like a man." Jalen just said, "I try," and kept walking. But not everyone was impressed. There were whispers, especially from parents who caught wind of what happened through their kids. That Monday evening, a parent-teacher meeting ran longer than usual. Some complained about violence on campus and kids feeling unsafe. They didn't name Jalen directly, but they didn't have to. That Thursday, Jalen was pulled from class and asked to meet with Mrs. Worth, the school in cellar. She greeted him with a soft smile, the kind that felt practiced. "Hi, Jalen. Just wanted to check in, see how you're adjusting." "I'm fine." She folded her hands in her lap. "We've heard there was an incident last week, some conflict with other students." Jalen shrugged. "I told them to leave me alone. They didn't listen. And then I defended myself." Mrs. Worth nodded slowly as if trying to read between the lines. "Do you feel safe here?" Jalen paused, looked her in the eye. "I feel fine. People just don't like being reminded they're not as tough as they thought." She didn't write that part down. Just changed the subject. "Well, I want you to know if you ever need to talk to someone about anything, you can always come here, okay?" Jalen gave her a polite nod. "Yes, ma'am." After school that day, he sat alone at the edge of the field watching the JV football team practice. He didn't say much, just watched the drills. Then, someone sat down next to him. It was Devon Lee, a quiet junior who mostly stayed to himself, always drawing in his notebook. Devin didn't speak at first, just sat, then finally said, "You train somewhere?" Jalen glanced at him. "Used to back home?" Devin nodded. That was something, man. I've never seen anybody move like that. Thought you were going to snap Cody's arm. I wasn't trying to hurt him, Jalen said. Devin hesitated. Yeah, but still. You didn't even flex or nothing. You just moved. I've been thinking about that all week. Jalen smiled faintly. It's not about looking tough. It's about knowing what you're capable of and choosing not to use it unless you have to. Devin looked down at the grass, then asked, "Can you teach me?" Jalen raised an eyebrow. "I'm serious," Devin said. "I'm tired of being the one who gets picked on and just laughs it off. I want to walk through the halls the way you do." Jalen looked back at the field thinking. "All right," he said finally. "But first thing I teach you is this. You don't train so you can fight. You train so you don't have to." Devin nodded slowly. "That's exactly what I want." And just like that, Jalen wasn't alone anymore. By the time spring rolled in, the school felt different. It wasn't that the bullies disappeared. They never really do. But something had shifted. Students who used to keep their heads down started walking a little taller. Kids who never spoke up before started checking each other. And Jalen, he just kept doing what he always did. Showed up, stayed calm, focused. But now he had company. Devin started meeting him behind the gym twice a week to practice. Then a few others joined. Kids who'd been quiet, overlooked, picked on. Word spread fast. Jalen's showing people how to defend themselves. But what he was really teaching them was how to carry themselves without fear. He taught them how to breathe, how to stand, how to decide when it's smarter to walk away. It wasn't about fighting. It was about presence. One day, Cody showed up. He didn't say anything at first, just stood off to the side, arms folded. Jalen didn't invite him in, but he didn't turn him away either. After practice, Cody walked up and cleared his throat. "I ain't here to cause trouble," he said. Jalen looked at him, waiting. Cody shifted awkwardly. I was thinking about what you said about me being smarter. I wasn't. I was a punk." He scratched the back of his neck. "I ain't ever got checked before. You checked me and I deserved it. I don't expect us to be cool or anything, but I respect it." Jalen nodded once, then change how you treat people. "I'm trying," Cody said. "I swear." He left after that. Didn't say goodbye, but he didn't need to. At the end of the school year, Jalen got called up at the spring assembly to receive a Leadership Through Action award. It wasn't flashy, no long speech, just a short announcement from the principal and some awkward clapping from the student body. But as he walked back to his seat, more than a few kids reached out to fist bump him. Devon patted him on the back and whispered, "Told you. You're a quiet legend, man." Jalen smirked. That night, sitting on the porch with his grandpa, Jalen told him everything. Leon Brooks didn't say much, just nodded, arms crossed, a tired smile on his face. "You didn't let them drag you down," he said. "You didn't lose control." Jalen looked out at the yard, grass freshly cut from the morning. "I didn't come here to be anything," he said. "I just didn't want trouble." His grandpa chuckled. "Funny how doing the right thing always finds a way to stand out, even when you're trying to stay quiet." They sat there for a long time. No more words needed. The truth is, real strength isn't about proving yourself to everyone. It's about knowing who you are when no one's watching. Sometimes all it takes is one person standing still while everyone else is losing control to show people what balance looks like. So, if you've ever been pushed, tested, or made to feel small, remember this. Power isn't loud. It doesn't need to shout. It just needs to know when to show up. If this story meant something to you, share it. You never know who might need to hear it.